Velina Kako. Welcome to episode 5 of Hanohano Lānaʻi, a series brought to you by Love Lānaʻi. Through this series, we delve into the unique history and culture of our beloved home. Every place in the world is unlike any other, and Lānaʻi is definitely not an exception. Join me as I feature the distinct aspects of Lānaʻi that make our home so special. On this episode, we continue to learn about Lānaʻi's diverse history. In the last episode, we learned about the arrival of Mormon elders on Lānaʻi in 1854 to begin a settlement in Palawai. They abandoned their efforts in 1858. A few years later, in 1861, Walter Murray Gibson arrived on Lānaʻi. He reorganized the Mormon settlement and began expanding his land holdings. In 1863, Gibson purchased the Ahupua'a of Palawai. Although the Mormon settlement ultimately failed, Gibson remained on Lānaʻi. In 1866, he secured a lease for the Ahupua'a of Ka'ohai and purchased the Ahupua'a of Ka'a and Kealia Kapu. In 1868, Gibson partnered with Kamehameha V to begin sheep ranching. He obtained leases for Kealia Aupuni in 1873, Pauma'i in 1874, and Kalulu in 1878. Let's continue on with our learning. Gibson's land grab continued. In 1886, he purchased the Ahupua'a of Mauna Lei from the estate of Queen Emma. He fell into some financial difficulties in 1887 and mortgaged his holdings. Then, 1 year later, in 1888, Gibson passed away. His daughter and son-in-law, Tallulah and Frederick Hazelden, inherited Gibson's holdings. The population on Lānaʻi in 1890 was reported at a mere 200 residents. In a duration of about 120 years, the population was reduced by 97%. In 1893 through 1896, Frederick and Tallulah Hazelden engaged in efforts to promote economic growth on the island. While the human population declined, the ungulate population was quickly growing. There were 50,000 sheep counted on Lānaʻi in that same year. In 1899, Frederick Hazelden partnered with other businessmen in Honolulu to organize the Mauna Lei Sugar Company. Keomoku Village was established and nearly 800 employees, mostly Japanese, Chinese, and Portuguese immigrants, were contracted as labor for the sugar plantation. Close to 3,000 acres of land were cleared for planting, and a sugar mill and railroad were constructed. Unfortunately for Hazelden and his partners, the sugar operation fell into bankruptcy in March of 1901 and was forced closed. This eventually led to the foreclosure of the Hazelden's assets and the sale of their holdings on Lānaʻi to Charles and Louisa Gay. In 1902, Charles and Louisa Gay purchased the Gibson estate and in a few years possessed most of the land on Lānaʻi in fee simple holding. The Gay family transitioned ranching operations from sheep to cattle. Between 1906 and 1907, Gay was granted fee simple ownership of all government lands on Lānaʻi. This is the first instance of the majority of the island being owned by one entity. In 1909, however, the Gay family found themselves in financial difficulties and mortgaged their land holdings to William G. Irwin and Company of Honolulu. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As we can conclude from what we learned, the 1800s were a time of great change for Lānaʻi. We saw the decline of native population, introduction of grazing animals, institution of private land ownership, and the beginning of ranching on the island, among other occurrences. In the early years of the 20th century, we saw the first instance of the majority of Lānaʻi being under the ownership of one person. On the next episode, we'll learn more about the early years of the 20th century, including how and why the island came to have so many pine trees. Until then, aloha. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to complete the quiz by clicking on the link in the description box below for your chance to win a $25 food credit. Ahui ho!